Hello everybody, welcome to Josh Dell'Aria's Musical Escapades. My name's Josh Dell'Aria, your host. I've been finding a wealth of new music lately. I've been going through a ton of indie blogs, and I've found quite a few of them that I particularly like. Quite a few musicians, I should say, that I really like. And I want to feature one of them here today, and I'm super excited for this. And on one of those websites, and you'll have to forgive me because I can't remember which one, because I've been looking at so many of them lately, but on one of those websites, I found this really cool, awesome band called Potty Mouth. Now, I do know that name can sound a little vulgar, but I would promise you that, we are a family show, so if there was anything that I needed a warning about, I would put it to you ahead of time. This particular song that I'm about to show you doesn't need that. So the band's publicity team was very kind and gave me a bio of the band to reference, and this actually got me really inspired by a lot of the things that they actually decided to do. So these three ladies are from Western Massachusetts originally, which is kind of cool because I have kind of a connection there. I grew up there, obviously, and I've moved out of there now. And they did the same back in 2016, trying to write a brand new album. And so they actually moved down to Los Angeles, and as they were starting to write, they were getting really upset with all of the producers trying to speed them up and trying to get them to work out music very fast. And they wanted to take their time and make something that really sounded good. So instead of going through those big name producers, they decided to use bassist Ellie Einbinder's own label and go indie with the music that they were going to produce. Of course, that's my kind of band right there. Now the cool thing about this is that they might have gotten more popular with the big name producers and their music might have been a lot more widespread, but I can almost guarantee you that their music would have sounded far, far worse had they not gone indie. And I then probably would not have bothered to discover them, or I would have probably just considered them just, the normal bubblegum crap that you hear on the radio, which most likely would have been true. But because I heard of them in the way that I did, that's why I decided to check them out, and I started listening to their music, and it sounds really awesome, you guys. So Potty Mouth is made up of Abby Weems, who's on vocals and guitar, Ellie Einbinder on the bass, and Victoria Mandanas on the drums. They are a punk rock band, by the way, and they just released their second album after a 4-year gap back in March. This album's called Snafu, and I've been really impressed by this song called Plastic Paradise, so I'm going to line it up here and play the whole thing for you guys as I normally do. And then since it's 2019 music, I get to give my verdict on whether I believe this has the ability to make the top 20 or not.
Walking a Whitehall, this could be a dream. It's just a strip mall. Heaven wouldn't be this clean. I remember why I'm here, only browsing for the perfect life. All the posters make it clear I have entered plastic paradise.
Okay, so first thing I want to mention is that this song has actually provided me with a lot of questions about it and why the musicians did what they did. Now, for some musicians, I'll go through songs like these and I'll ask questions, but they're more like, what were you thinking kind of questions. That applies to some bands, it does not apply to this band. The kind of questions that you do want me to ask is, kind of like, why did you put this in this place here? I'm trying to figure out the purpose of your doing that. And so I think there are a lot of instances in this song that might have led to like a little bit more of a hidden meaning, things like that type of thing. So I'll get to more of those kind of like questions that I have more toward the end of the review. I do want to go through some of the things that I'm more certain of at the beginning, and then I'll kind of explain what I mean by a lot of these questions that I have. Okay, so the first big thing I want to talk about is the set of notes that this band actually uses. So, if you don't know, there are 12 different unique note names in all of music. So, every 13th note that you get to is going to be the same one as the first one that you got to, and so on and so forth, up through every 12, 13 notes, whatever you want to call it. Now, out of those 12 notes, most bands will use a particular scale. So it can either be major, like this, or minor, which sounds like this. But usually, in a lot of cases, bands will throw in some variable notes that will help kind of spice everything up. So in a major scale, they might throw in a flat 6, which is kind of a neat way to go into like a different kind of minor key that might sound a little bit different. Or they might throw in a sharp 4th, which actually sounds like it's going to go into the key of the key that's 5 steps up from that bass note. Or they might play a flat 7th, which gives it more of like either a bluesy or a jazzy or funky feel. So it sounds like this. It's still kind of happy, but it's not as happy. It's a little bit more sedated. Now, in the minor key, there are also quite a few variants that are commonly used, and then some that are not so commonly used. So one of the most common uses is the use of what's called the leading tone. Now, if you guys heard pretty well, there are a couple of differences between the major scale and the minor scale, and one of them is that the 7th note of the scale in the minor key is usually flat, as opposed to the major key. So when I got up here in the major scale, that's the note you hear, is this one here, and the minor scale comes up to. So there's a difference between this and this. But because this note has such a gravitation toward the first chord of the scale, it is used very often in minor keys. And in particular, they use a lot of major 5th chords, and the 5th chord has that leading tone as a major part of that. And so, with that leading tone in mind, it leads you back toward the root chord of the scale, or in this case, it would be called the first chord. So do you hear how that strongly leads your ear toward this chord? As opposed to if you used the flat 7th, which would sound like this. That's your flat 7th there. It doesn't lead quite as easily back to this chord. So that's why that note gets used a lot, very frequently in a lot of minor key songs. So that's one variant. Another variant is to raise the 3rd note in the minor scale. So it normally goes, that's your 3rd note. But there are a lot of times when somebody wants to make an indication that the scale is changing to a major key, or that the song, I should say, is changing to a major key at the time. So they might use a sharp 3rd, and they might raise the 3rd note in the scale in order to give you that impression. and that seems pretty common as well. And then the third thing, which is far less common, is to use kind of a Mixolydian mode variant. And I'll explain a little bit more what that means, but what they're basically doing, and this is what Potty Mouth is doing, by the way, is that musicians might occasionally raise both the third and the sixth of the scale. Now that's truly a Mixolydian mode, but the way Potty Mouth uses this is actually quite different from what I think a lot of people would do with it. Now what's cool about Potty Mouth is that they're actually going back and forth between these natural thirds and flat thirds in a lot of instances, and natural sixths and flat sixths, actually very unpredictably. So what they're doing in the chorus is they're starting on an E natural, which is the natural third, or sharp third in this case, or whatever, regular third if you want to call it, of the minor scale. So this is actually not in the minor scale, it's one of those variants. With the angel smile. So that first note is an E natural. And then on the keep reminding me, they sing an E flat on the re of reminding. Keep reminding me. And then in the verses, they have an A flat chord in there, even though they don't have an A flat in the melody. But the chord structure goes from a C to an E flat to an A flat chord, and then a B flat, and then C again, and then E flat again, and then it goes to an A natural chord and a B flat. So that's where they switch back and forth. So it's like every couple of measures, which is actually very atypical of a lot of bands to do. Now, you know what's really funny about this song? You remember how I told you guys that using the leading tone is the most common thing to have in a minor key? This note here? Yeah, the band never uses that note in this particular song, which I think is actually one of the more fascinating things about this song, because generally, if anybody is going to use a minor key, they're running to this chord with this note in it. And this band doesn't, and I really admire that from them. Okay, another aspect about this song that I really like is that the minor key hits you right about like 4 or 5 seconds into the song.
Walking a white hall.
Yeah, up until that point, I thought this was going to be in a major key. I was just completely shocked that the minor came in that fast, although not like right at the beginning of the song. So it gives you that little sliver of time where you just don't know. And then, you know, as I was thinking, I was just thinking it was just going to plot along like a regular song in a regular major key, and it completely floored me right when I started hearing the B flats and the A flats and all that fun stuff. Alright, I want to dive into these lyrics here because I think they are really awesome, and I want to give you a really good sense of those by playing both verses here, and I'll play them back to back for you.
Walking a white hall. This could be a dream. It's just a strip mall. Heaven wouldn't be this clean. I remember why I'm here, only browsing for the perfect life. All the posters make it clear I have entered plastic paradise. Running, scared of things that come for free. Lost in a garden of mannequins and magazines. I remember why I'm here, only browsing for the perfect life. Happy faces everywhere. I have entered plastic paradise.
So I think what's awesome about these lyrics is that they give you a great sense of imagery, and it paints you a great picture of just about exactly what happens in shopping malls. And I love that whole idea that they were kind of really getting around that message of how obsessive this can kind of be, because it kind of pulls you in without you are thinking about it too much. And so I think that's a great sense of exactly what, you know, like shopping malls can be like from time to time in our day and age. I think that's really awesome. I think that they really put it in a great characterization. You know, it's an awesome talent or gift or whatever you want to call it, I think skill probably, for musicians to take something that's so commonplace that we barely think about it. We take it so much for granted. and they can put a completely different spin on it that would get us to think about it from a completely different perspective. And I think with lyrics like, I remember why I'm here, only browsing for the perfect life, and running scared of things that come for free, and lost in a garden of mannequins and magazines. I think with lyrics like those, it really gets us to think differently, and I think that's a really awesome thing that Potty Mouth did in this song. So, as I mentioned earlier, I have some questions about the song that I am kind of trying to figure out the answers to, because I feel like if I figure out the answers to them, I might understand the song a little bit better and a little bit more as to why certain things are in the song. And one of them actually pertains to these lyrics. I'm trying to determine whether there's an underlying message to all this. My sense is that this is not just about, the fact that we're, just obsessed with going to strip malls and spending all our money. I think that Potty Mouth is trying to get at the sense that this whole lifestyle is really just ingrained into us as we grow up, and we really take it for granted, as I was mentioning earlier, that it's so easy to go shopping and spend all our money, and we don't really bat an eye at it. So I'm really wondering whether this is actually a commentary on societal behavior, or if it's just Potty Mouth just writing about how much they love going shopping. Another question I have is a musical one, and that has to do with this this part after the second chorus, which you can't really call it a bridge, and you also can't really call it a solo, so I'm not really sure what to call it. Yeah, so part of me is wondering, why wouldn't they have put a bridge in this song? Put full lyrics, something different in here. And normally I would be pretty upset about something like that, but I'm curious to know, to think about, whether they thought that the lyrics in the verses really communicated the message so well that they didn't really need a bridge to bring it home. So I'm not really sure why they might not have put a solo in there either. And try to jam it out. Sometimes I know if bands don't really have the ability to solo, it's probably not best to put a solo in that spot, and so maybe that's why they did it. Normally I'd be really unhappy at a section like that, but I think in this case, there might be a little bit of room for a section like that, because if they've gotten their message out really strong, then, having a bridge could destroy that message if it's not done well. So, I'm not really sure why there's not lyrics there or nothing additional in any case. So that's something I'd like to try to figure out. Lastly, I'm curious as to why they use this minor key. And I think I have a little bit clearer of an answer on this, because I can see that they kind of want to balance the ideas of happiness for the major side and obsession for the minor side. So I think that's kind of the way they wanted to structure this song, and so I can see that a little bit, but I'm not sure if there's another reason for their doing it, aside from the obvious musical reasons that I pointed out earlier in the video. Okay, so verdict time. Is this song going to get nominated for the top 20? The answer is, drumroll please, yes. With their ability to use a lot of unconventional stuff, and their ability to be so descriptive of that situation, and possibly have an underlying meaning, and give me all these questions to kind of consider and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I think these ladies have done plenty to reach the top 20 with this song. Again, whether they actually get there or not, I don't know until I've done the top 20. But I will probably consider them. So, unless something crazy changes, that's what's going to happen. Alright, that's all I have for this song. Thank you all for watching. I have to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to Tasya and Casey and all the wonderful people over at Newhouse Publicity who are really kind enough to give me the photo and the press bio and the ability to use the song here for Potty Mouth. I can't thank you guys enough for your generosity. You guys have been awesome. Guys, go check out Potty Mouth's website. It's pottymouthworld.com. They have some great stuff on there, and obviously, as you guys know, I will totally link their social media stuff down in the description. And lastly, the top 20 is coming. The top 20 is coming. So, if you know anybody who has phenomenal music out from this year, full albums for the most part, please do not hide them from me. I want to know about them, because they will be eligible for the top 20. And I want to listen to them and give them that shot. So, if it's your music or somebody else's music, whoever it is, let me know in the comments below or by email or Facebook. My email here is joshdell'Ariasmusicalescapades@gmail.com, and my Facebook page is facebook.com/JoshD'sMusicalEscapades. Thank you all again for watching, and until next time, go make great music.